August 17, 1944. Somewhere in northern France, near Files, a GMC CCKW sat abandoned. Its canvas top was ripped apart by shrapnel, but the engine was still warm. It was part of an American convoy that had been hit by German planes, a rare sight over France by this point. Some German mechanics from the 276th Infantry Division warily went to check out what the Americans called a deuce and a half. "Hey, Weeble, come take a look," one of them called out. "This one's still in one piece." What they found in the next hour just confirmed what they'd been suspecting since Normandy. Germany had already lost the war, not on the battlefield, but in the factories back in Detroit. The truck was huge compared to German vehicles, able to carry 2.5 tons. It made their standard Opel Blitz look tiny. But the first thing the mechanics noticed wasn't its size. It wasn't complicated. The engine was right there, easy to get to, and the parts were all labeled in English. One of the mechanics opened a toolbox on the side. Inside, there were basic wrenches, pliers, and a manual printed on good paper with clear pictures. "Check this out," Weeble said, flipping through the manual. Everything's explained with pictures. A kid could follow this. They'd captured American trucks before, but they'd never looked at one this closely. The GMC had markings that showed it was a 1943 CCKW 353 model, the long wheelbase version. Stamps showed it was one of thousands made that year at the Pontiac plant, 1,000 from just one factory. The first look under the hood showed the whole idea behind it. The GMC 270 engine made 104 horsepower. That wasn't much by German standards. But the mechanic knew right away that power wasn't what they were going for. Every bolt was the same size. You could use the same wrench for every nut. The spark plugs were easy to reach. You could change the oil filter without any tools. "This is made for idiots," one mechanic muttered. Weeble corrected him. "No, it's made for an army of millions, where most guys aren't mechanics. It's smart." He was right. The GMC wasn't built to be perfect. It was built for America's army, where farm boys and factory workers would become combat drivers with little training. Every part was picked because it was easy to get and easy to replace. There was nothing fancy about it, and you didn't need to be an expert to work on it. They looked at the six-wheel drive. A simple lever switched it on. Their Opel Blitz trucks, on the other hand, were only rear-wheel drive. They got stuck all the time in the mud and took careful driving to handle. This American truck could go through anything that would stop a German vehicle. The suspension used basic leaf springs, not fancy, but tough. Weeble thought about the Opel's complicated suspension, which needed special tools to repair. These leaf springs could be fixed with just a rock if you had to. The worst part was what the numbers showed. Stamped on the frame was Pontiac Plant Number 1. The number meant this truck was one of about 150,000 built in 1943 alone. One plant, in 1 year, made more trucks than all of Germany. One of the mechanics did the math. If one American plant makes this many trucks, how many plants do they have? The answer was dozens. GMC, Chevrolet, Studebaker, all making similar vehicles with parts that could be swapped, all built to the same military rules. That night, the unit supply officer came to take a look. He used to work at the Opel plant and knew a lot about car making. "We're missing the point," he said. "We see a simple truck, but it shows a whole way of making things that we can't do." He explained what the GMC showed about American production. The steel body panels were rough, but any factory could make tons of them quickly. The wooden bed used standard wood from any sawmill. The canvas top was regular fabric. Nothing was special. Everything was easy to get. "Look at the frame," he said, pointing to the steel beams. "Any steel plant could make these. Compare that to our Opel, which needs special machines to make the frame." The Americans had used their huge industry to their advantage. The GMC wasn't as nice as the Opel Blitz, but it was better at the one thing that mattered: getting made. The supply officer's view got darker. In 1943, we made about 27,000 Opel Blitz trucks. The Americans probably made 20 times that many of these GMC trucks alone. And that's just one truck from one company. He was playing down. American factories would make over 562,000 CCKW trucks during the war. Germany's total production of the Opel Blitz, the most important truck for their army, was maybe 100,000, and most of those didn't have four-wheel drive like the GMC. Over the next week, the unit used the captured GMC to haul supplies. It made a big difference. While their Opel trucks struggled in the mud, the GMC just powered through. Even when it was loaded with more than it was supposed to carry, it kept going. A supply sergeant who drove it every day said, "This truck is reliable in a way our vehicles aren't. It's not built better, it's just built to be abused." They knew soldiers would overload it, not do any maintenance, and drive it like they were trying to break it. That was it. American engineers had built the GMC for what war was really like, not what it should be. They knew drivers would be poorly trained, maintenance would be late, and things would be a mess. So they built something simple, tough, and easy to fix. On August 25, 1944, the same day the Americans started the Red Ball Express, the 276th Infantry Division was told to move east. They saw something else that taught them about American supply lines. An American convoy went by on a nearby road, not moving to fight, just bringing supplies. The Germans watched and counted. After a while, they stopped. There were just too many. Truck after truck, all the same, all loaded with supplies, all moving perfectly toward the front. "Where are their horses?" a young soldier asked, confused. The Weeble knew the boy had never seen an army that didn't use horses. In the German army, 80% of supplies were moved by horses. Their division needed over 5,000 horses just to move what they needed. Those horses needed food, water, rest, and doctors. They could go maybe 30 kilometers a day if things were good. And thousands of them died in the winter. American divisions had no horses, just trucks. Thousands of trucks that could go hundreds of kilometers a day, didn't need to eat, didn't get tired, and didn't freeze. The supply officer did more math that night. Each American division has about 2,000 trucks. They have 40 divisions in France. That's 80,000 trucks just supporting the fighting, not counting all the other supply stuff. We have 3 million horses total across all fronts and maybe 100,000 trucks. Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. How can they make so many vehicles? The answer was hard to say out loud. American car plants have been making things in huge numbers for years. Ford's assembly line, GM's way of making things. When the war came, they just switched from making cars to making army vehicles. The same factories that made Chevrolet cars made GMC trucks. The same workers who put together Oldsmobiles put together military vehicles. It was easy because they already knew how to make things fast and in big numbers. Germany had great engineers, but they didn't have that kind of production. The Opel plant couldn't make as many vehicles as one American factory. And America had dozens of factories like that. By September 1944, the unit had captured 3 more GMC trucks and a Dodge WC63. The mechanics saw something amazing. Parts could be swapped not just between GMC trucks, but between different companies. A GMC part fit the Dodge. Even the tires were the same size. They made everything the same, the supply officer said. One set of rules, lots of companies making things. That means anyone can work on any truck, and any supply depot can get parts for anything. Their supply lines are connected in a way ours have never been. The German army used vehicles from dozens of companies, with parts that didn't fit each other. A mechanic who knew how to fix an Opel might not know how to fix a Boeing or Mercedes. Warehouses had to have parts for hundreds of different vehicles. It was a mess. On October 3rd, 1944, the division's vehicles were stuck because they didn't have any fuel. The horses could find food, but the trucks couldn't move. Meanwhile, the Americans kept going because their supply network, built on thousands of GMC trucks, got fuel to the soldiers. The mechanics used the time to study the captured American trucks. One of them had an idea that made everything clear. We built our vehicles to be good. They built theirs to be good enough, but they have so many of them that they win. The Weeble wrote a report on the GMC CCKW. It had all the details, the parts that were all the same, how easy it was to fix, and how tough it was, even if it wasn't pretty. The report said that the Opel Blitz was better on gas and easier to turn. But that didn't matter when Germany made one truck for every 5 or 6 American trucks. The report said, American vehicle production shows they can make things in a way we can't. They care more about making a lot of things and making them all the same than about making each vehicle perfect. In a long war, that's been a disaster for us. Similar reports were going all over the German army. German analysts looked at American production numbers and got worried. The numbers were crazy. American factories made 2.4 million military trucks during the war. Germany, Italy, and Japan couldn't even get close to that. December 1944 was the Ardennes Offensive, Hitler's last try in the West. The plan depended on capturing American fuel because Germany didn't have enough. German soldiers were told to use captured American vehicles whenever they could because German supply lines couldn't keep up. The irony was hard to miss. Germany's last big attack depended on taking the very vehicles and fuel that showed why Germany was losing. The 276th Infantry Division used their captured American trucks alongside their few remaining Opel vehicles in the attack. When the attack stopped, it wasn't just because the Americans fought hard. It was because German supply lines fell apart. Tanks were left behind because fuel trucks couldn't get to them. Soldiers used horses because the trucks had broken down. Meanwhile, American supplies kept coming. The Red Ball Express was over, but American supply lines were now working from Antwerp, Brussels, and Cherbourg. Trucks moved supplies on roads that got better as engineers fixed them. The American army was a machine powered by industry that Germany couldn't match. In January 1945, as the Ardennes offensive failed and German forces retreated, the captured GMC trucks were really useful. They still worked. The Opel trucks, which had been through the same tough conditions, had mostly broken down. The difference wasn't just how they were taken care of. It was how they were built in the first place. The GMC was built to take a beating. The Opel was built to German standards that couldn't handle war. By March 1945, the 276th Infantry Division was defending in the Rhineland. American forces had crossed the Rhine in huge numbers. The mechanics watched American supply lines with respect and sadness. They've built an army that runs on supplies, and they've built supplies that can't be stopped, the Weeble said. Our army was built thinking we'd fight short wars where we could win with skill, even if we didn't have as much stuff. We never planned for this. Years of fighting an enemy that makes equipment faster than we can break it. The division surrendered on April 18, 1945. They were taken to processing centers in American GMC trucks. The trip was a final lesson in American industry. At the center near Koblenz, the prisoners saw hundreds of American trucks. Young American soldiers fixed them easily, something that would have been hard to imagine in the German army. Parts were everywhere. Tools were easy to get. The manuals were so simple that soldiers with almost no training could do complex repairs. A capture mechanic talked to an American sergeant who was surprisingly nice. Your mechanics? Hell, we need mechanics. Can you work on these? The sergeant pointed at the GMC trucks. Yeah, we've fixed some captured ones. Good. The war's over for you, but these trucks still need work. I can get you assigned to the motor pool. That's better than sitting behind a fence. Over the next few weeks, German mechanics worked with American soldiers, fixing the very vehicles that had helped defeat them. The American sergeant explained their maintenance way with no holding back. We build everything for speed. Quick fixes, parts that all fit, simple steps. See this engine? 2 guys can take it apart and put it back together in 8 hours with just regular tools. Try doing that with one of your trucks. The German mechanic agreed. Taking apart an Opel engine needs a factory and special equipment. We built for accuracy, you built for practicality. Exactly. In peacetime, your way probably makes better vehicles. In war, our way makes vehicles that keep armies moving. How many of these GMC trucks do you think you built? I don't know. Hundreds of thousands. Over 500,000 of just this model. Then there's the Dodges, the Studebakers. Millions of trucks. That's what won the war. Not better equipment, but more equipment than you could ever break. The American went on. You know what's funny? These trucks aren't that special. We used regular truck stuff, barely changed it for the army. The engines are regular engines, the transmissions too. We just made it stronger and made a lot of them. This was what the German mechanics learned. America had won because of their industry and how they thought about making things. They planned for making a lot of things from the start, made everything the same, care more about being reliable than being fancy, and built supply lines that could keep going forever. The mechanics spent months in prisoner camps, many working in American motor pools. They saw how huge American supply lines were every day. Convoys of hundreds of trucks moved supplies across Germany. Repair shops had more spare parts than entire German divisions had had. They were so good at making things that they often just replaced broken vehicles instead of fixing them, because new vehicles arrived faster than repairs could be done. In late 1945, when they started sending people home, the German mechanics went back to a destroyed country. Cities were in ruins, factories were gone, but American vehicles were everywhere. GMC trucks hauling stuff to rebuild, Jeeps carrying soldiers, everything helping Germany start over. The Weeble, now just a regular guy, got a job at a rebuilding depot in Frankfurt. His experience with American vehicles made him valuable. One day, while teaching young Germans how to fix vehicles, he thought about what the war had taught him. Before the war, we thought German engineering was better, that quality would beat quantity. We were wrong. The Americans understood modern war better than we did. They built equipment that was good enough, and they built a lot of it. They made everything the same. They built it for the army they had, millions of regular guys, not the perfect army we wanted. These trucks aren't perfect, but they won the war because there were so many of them. They all used the same parts. Anyone could drive them, and anyone could fix them. That was the smart part. Not in each vehicle, but in the whole system. By 1947, the Marshall Plan was sending aid to Germany, mostly in American trucks. German mechanics fixed these vehicles, using what they'd learned over the years. When German industry started rebuilding, they used American ideas, making everything the same, using parts that fit everything, and building things so they were easy to make. The GMC CCKW stayed in American service until the 1960s, showing how tough it was. The Opel Blitz, which was a great vehicle, became a sign of Germany's industrial problems during the war. In the years that followed, German car companies combined German engineering with American ways of making things. Companies like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and the rebuilt Volkswagen made vehicles that used both ideas, building things accurately, but in a way that was easy to make a lot of them. The consultant said in a 1967 interview, "The GMC truck taught us that in modern war, being perfect is the enemy of being good enough." Germany built amazing vehicles that were too hard to make in the numbers we needed and too hard for soldiers to fix in the field. America built vehicles that were good enough, and they could make millions of them, and anyone could fix them. We lost not because our engineers weren't as good, but because we didn't understand what war really needed. The article had a picture of a GMC CCKW that had been fixed up for a museum. The caption said, "American GMC CCKW deuce and a half truck. Over 560,000 made from 1941 to 1945. These trucks were the backbone of the Red Ball Express and showed the American way of making things, using huge production and making everything the same to beat the Axis powers." Next to it was a restored Opel Blitz. The caption said, "German Opel Blitz 3-tonne truck, about 100,000 made from 1937 to 1944. A great vehicle, but it couldn't be made in big enough numbers, and most models didn't have four-wheel drive." The picture showed it all. Both were good trucks, but one existed in huge numbers with parts that fit everything, easy repairs, and a supply system that could support armies for a long time. The other was a quality product, but they didn't make enough of them, and their industry couldn't compete with America. The mechanics who looked at that first captured GMC in August 1944 knew right away what it meant. They had seen the future and Germany's past. American industrial ideas, developed in the car plants of Detroit, had proven to be the best way to fight a modern war. The GMC CCKW wasn't just a truck. It taught hard lessons about war, about how to build things, and about why making a lot of something is important. 4 German mechanics who fixed these vehicles as prisoners and later as civilians helping rebuild their country. Those lessons changed their lives and German manufacturing for years. The story of the mechanics and the GMC truck is about learning after losing. They had believed in German greatness, in quality over quantity, in perfect engineering over lots of production. The American trucks, simple, easy to get, and reliable, taught them something different. That knowledge, which they got the hard way, became useful in rebuilding Germany. It helped turn Germany from a defeated enemy into a successful ally, built on what they learned from thousands of American trucks. The mechanics who drove captured GMC trucks admitted that they had never had vehicles quite like them, not because they were better built, but because of a way of making things that Germany had never mastered. That was the beginning of the wisdom that rebuilt a nation.